This is The Long Road to Publishing, the podcast where we hear from authors who have traveled a long and bumpy road to publishing their books. Whether you're just starting out on your own writing and publishing journey, or if you're all too aware of the many possible detours along the way, this podcast is for you. I'm your host, Eva Langston, author, writing instructor, and creator of Eva's newsletter for writers on Substack. Thank you so much for coming along on the ride. I first met Kathleen Barber at Bouchercon in New Orleans, which is funny because we both live in the DC area. Kathleen writes both suspense novels and romantic comedies, and her latest book, Sisterhood Above All, a Rush Talk novel, is a collaboration with Alabama Rush Talk star Amayah Shaienne. The book was released this July from Saturday House, which is a new adult imprint from Macmillan. I really wish I'd asked Kathleen about this on the episode to get her opinion, but I'll just say that, to be honest, I don't exactly know where we are these days with new adult. Most bookstores still don't have a new adult section, and there still seems to be differing opinions as to what new adult actually is. But it does seem like it's becoming more and more of a legit category for publishers and something you can query your book as. In the last 2 years, 4 of the big 5 publishers have launched new adult imprints. So now there's finally a place for novels with main characters in the 18 to 24 age range. And it sounds like Sisterhood Above All, a novel about college girls who are, as it says on the book cover, dying to rush, is a perfect fit for the new adult category. Speaking of college girls, Amayah Shaienne, who Kathleen collaborated with on the novel, just graduated from the University of Alabama, which is crazy for me to think about her helping to craft a novel while also doing her senior year of college. Amayah gained an enormous audience documenting her college life and now has nearly 200,000 followers across TikTok and Instagram. Let me wrap up this intro with my usual quick reminder to rate, review, and subscribe to the show and spread the word about the long road to publishing to anyone who might be interested in listening. And now, on with the episode. Since Kathleen's debut novel was a huge success, but was followed by some disappointments, I'm calling this episode Freshman Rush and a Sophomore Slump. Kathleen Barber is the author of Truth Be Told, which was adapted into a series on Apple TV Plus by Reese Witherspoon's Hello Sunshine Media Company, as well as the novels Follow Me, Both Things Are True, and most recently, Sisterhood Above All with Amayah Shaienne. A certified book coach and former lawyer, she now lives in Washington, D.C. with her husband and children. So welcome to the Long Road to Publishing, Kathleen.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
I'm so excited to talk to you about all the things, but recently I heard you read from Sisterhood Above All. And I mean, first of all, you're very good at reading
Thank
aloud.
you.
But also I was just like, okay, yep, I'm in, I'm sold. So you don't have to sell me on Sisterhood Above All, but I was wondering if you want to give a little pitch about it because when this episode comes out, it will be out in the world.
All right. Yeah, sure. Thank you. And I mean, first, thanks for coming to the bar. That was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, so Sisterhood Above All is a thriller set during sorority rush at a fictional Southern university. It follows 3 women, Madison, who is the president of the Gammas, which is like the coolest sorority on campus, and they know it. Shay, who's the president of the Thetas, which is another chapter that the Gammas kind of perceive as their rivals. And then Ava, who is a freshman in college. She's a potential new member going through Rush for the first time. And she would do anything to join the Gammas. Things get heated, things get dark, things go sideways, somebody winds up dead.
It's a thriller, so there's always a little murdery deathness
Yes.
going on. Yeah. And I'm sure we'll get into this later, but this was kind of inspired by this whole like rush talk and people being
Mhm.
obsessed with the Alabama rush. Is that right?
Yeah, so I actually had been pitching my agent various sorority themed stories for years. Actually, one of the other stories that I read at Noir at the Bar quite frequently is a short story that I'd written about some sorority women behaving badly. But a couple of years ago, my agent reached out to me and was like, "Hey, have you been watching this Bama Rush thing?" And I was like, "Yeah, it's a lot of fun." And she was like, "Well, somebody needs to write about it, and I think it should be you." And I was like, you're right. It should be me. But she was like, but I think that the way to do it is to pair you up with one of these Bama Rush women and, really go all in making it feel authentic. So yeah, so she connected me with Amayah and we just had a really, really great time pulling the story together.
Oh, that's so fun. And Amaya is, well, I looked her up because I knew about the Rush Talk. I wasn't really
Yeah.
following it, but Amaya was like one of the main players in
Yes.
this whole TikTok Rush thing, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely central in it. She's a delight. I really enjoy Amayah.
You and I are about the same age. I used to write YA, and I started to get to a point where I was like, I don't know what teenagers are like anymore. And I'm sure it's the same, like, nice to have like a, recent college kid who can kind of
Yes.
like help you with that.
Yes. Yeah. So I would definitely send some pages to Amaya and she would be like, "Oh, nobody my age would say that." Or like nobody my age would wear that. You know.
Yeah.
Um so in some ways it was kind of humbling because I mean, I've been out of college for a while, but I still consider myself to be a person who is aware of trends and what's going on. And I was clearly very, very not.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Well, yeah. So, like I said, I'm going to probably, because we're going to like go back in time and work back up to this moment where you are now. So, I might have more questions about Sisterhood Above All. But yeah, for now, I do want to kind of like go through your whole journey of how you got to where you are now. And I know you used to be a lawyer. Was there always a part of you that wanted to write fiction? And when do you feel like you decided you were going to pursue that?
I mean, I have always wanted to be a writer. Like I will date myself by saying I used to drag a typewriter like up onto my bed as a child and I would write my like Babysitters Club fan fiction. Like yeah.
Oh my gosh, we're gonna have to talk later because I also have Babysitters Club fan
Oh
fiction
my God,
that
I love it.
it was like the new Babysitters Club member, Eva Langston, of course. I like wrote myself into the Babysitters Club.
Oh my gosh, that's amazing. I love it. Mine were mainly, because Dawn was my favorite character. So mine were mainly like stories where Dawn got to do something cool and I would like live vicariously through her as I
Yeah.
wrote about it. But yeah, no, so I always wanted to write. But as I got older, I didn't necessarily have an idea of how that was going to translate into a career. Because I'm also Midwestern and very practical. And I was like, well, no, I need to like have a real career. And then I can just like write on the side. And my dad was a lawyer, but my dad was also a really creative guy. And so I looked at him and I was like, well, he goes to work in his firm during the day, and then he comes home and makes up stories for us and does art and this kind of stuff. And like that's the kind of life that I want. But I did not consider that my dad was a lawyer in like a small town, whereas I became a lawyer at a large law firm in New York City. And
Oh, yeah.
yeah, I like had no time at all. I like ate all of my meals at my desk. I like slept with my BlackBerry under my pillow. And I didn't have time for anything, especially writing, which kind of, requires more than just like sitting down and like hammering out a few words. It requires kind of like the mental space in order to be able to do it.
Yeah.
So you'd asked about the time that I got really serious, and I think that was in 2014, which was when I'd been working at a large law firm for a few years and knew that I couldn't do that forever. And my husband, who was also working at a large law firm, kind of felt the same way. And so we both quit our jobs and sold all of our stuff, and we backpacked around Africa for 8 months.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
wow.
Yeah. And then I came back and I felt like I had like a really like a hard reset. And I was like, okay, this is my moment. Like we'd set it up so we didn't have to go back immediately to work. So I was like, I have at least a little bit of time that I can sit down and see if I can make something of this. And that was when I wrote the book that became Truth Be Told.
Okay. Yeah, I want to go back to just one thing that you said because I thought it was very astute of like, I think we hear a lot of this like, oh, all you need is 15 minutes a day or like, a half an hour a day. Wake up a half an hour early and get some words in. But I do think for a lot of us, we need that mental space when you're so busy, when you're working a really intense job, your brain is just clogged up, you know? And you
Yeah.
need like sometimes I feel like, especially when I'm drafting something new, I need some like chunks of time where I can just take walks and let my mind wander. And
Yeah, I'm the same way. Yeah, I mean, I do hear other people who are like, "Oh, well, I wrote this entire book in my notes app while my kid was at soccer practice," and I am amazed and impressed because that is just not at all how I work. Like I really need that space to be able to think, to be able to kind of like let the story come alive. And I didn't have that when I was working in a law firm. I was a bankruptcy lawyer, so I had a lot of like numbers just kind of like crashing around in my head all the time. It was,
yeah, yeah. Okay, so you quit, you guys backpacked around Africa, you came
yeah.
back. Did you come back to New York City or did you
We
go
did
somewhere?
not.
Okay.
We spent a while where we didn't really live anywhere. My husband was doing advance work for Obama at the time, so he was kind of just like hopping around where he was needed, and we would get Airbnbs in like various places and just stay there for a little while. So I revised a lot of the book that was going to become Truth Be Told at some like random Airbnb in Oakland while my husband was like in Argentina.
Oh,
It
wow.
was it was a weird time in our life, I'll
Yeah,
say.
yeah. But also like, I don't know, like filling your creative well, going to different places, seeing different
Yeah.
things. So, okay, so then tell me how, so this was like the first novel you wrote, is that right?
No. So the funny thing about Truth Be Told is that parts of it I had been writing since I was a teenager. I had been like writing about those characters for a long time. And I think I probably wrote like the first full-length novel about those characters in like 2010 as like a NaNoWriMo project. But I had also written this women's fiction novel. I'm going to call it a novel in like a loving sense of the word, and that it was like 80,000 words, but it like had no plot. It was just
Uh-huh.
like rambling. And I did attempt to query that to very little success, as you might guess from my description of it. But Truth Be Told was like the first novel that I was like, okay, this is a real book. It's the right length that has a beginning, a middle, and an ending. Something happens. Like
Right.
there's a point of view. So
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. So, but you had like been dabbling around with these characters for a while before you wrote it.
yeah. So Truth Be Told is about the main character is this woman, Josie, who has a twin named Lainey. And at the start of the story, they're estranged. And I'd been really interested ever since I was a teenager about the idea that like two people who could be as similar as they could possibly be could have the same traumatic thing happen to them and then react in completely different ways. And so that
Mm-hmm.
was like an idea I'd been playing around with, but I just had no idea what the story was.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I gave them many problems over the years.
So, yeah, and sometimes you have to write those like rambling, nothing much happens, get it out of your system. And okay, so then, yeah, so how did it go with querying Truth Be Told?
Surprisingly well. So, like I said, I had attempted to query this women's fiction novel before, and I hadn't taken it very seriously because I didn't really know what I was doing, and I was working at the time. And but what I had taken away from that is that there's a lot of rejection in publishing. So I was prepared for the rejection, but I wanted to do things better this time. So I got, the Writer's Digest, like the thick phone book that it used to be, and I like made my spreadsheets. And then I like started sending the query letter out. But I did it in like a way like, well, nobody's gonna respond anyway. So like, who cares? Who cares that like I've written this like kind of absurd story? Nobody's gonna care. But I started getting requests, which was really exciting. I got a couple of full requests pretty much right away. And one of them was for an R&R, which, as you know, is a revise and resubmit. And that agent did not end up becoming my agent, but I will always be really grateful to her because she spent a lot of time on the phone with me going over like, these are the problems with your story. Like, you have a good idea, but your story has all these issues. And so I spent a lot of time revising it. I think I sent it to her another time, and once again, she was like, "This isn't quite right. Here are some more thoughts."
Wow, Angel.
Yeah. Yeah. And then I eventually sent it back to her again, and she sent it back to me and was like, "Look, I really like this story. It still needs work though, and I have these other obligations that are happening. I can't spend any more time with you here. But I do believe in you, and is it okay if I pass this along to another agent friend at another agency?" And I was like, "Yeah, please." Like anything. So she passed it along to Lisa Grubka, who became my agent and is still my agent today. I know not the way that things normally work out, and I am always, always grateful to the woman for the guidance that she gave me.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I think too, I feel like I was reading somewhere, but it's also just common sense that like one of the things agents want to see in a potential writer is the willingness to revise and the like willingness to take in feedback and make changes. So even though she didn't end up taking you, she was like, this is a writer who's willing to put in the work, so I'm going to recommend her to someone else, you
Oh,
know.
that's interesting. That makes a lot of sense. I had not heard that, but that makes a lot of sense.
I love when I get to feature a DC area author like Kathleen, and it seems all the more fitting now that the Long Road to Publishing is sponsored by Wonderland Books, a DC area independent bookstore located in the heart of Bethesda, Maryland. Wonderland opened in 2024 and is owned by award-winning journalist Amy Joyce, who has edited many of the authors that grace Wonderland's shelves, and former communications executive Gail Weiswasser, who writes the long-running book review blog Every Day I Write the Book. Browse Wonderland the next time you're in downtown Bethesda and check out their website, wonderlandbooks.com, for upcoming events. You can also support Wonderland by choosing it as your bookstore when you make online purchases through bookshop.org or Libro.fm. And mark your calendars for Wonderland's first local author showcase on October 8th. For more information and to apply to be an author at the showcase, check out the link in the show notes or email info@wonderlandbooks.com. And now back to my chat with Kathleen.
I always say that I think one of the things that actually really helped me was when I was working a large law firm, I would write these things and the partners would just like basically just like cross them out with red ink and be like, no, do better. So I got a really thick skin
Yeah,
about my writing at that point in time. I'm pretty good at taking feedback.
yeah. Well, okay, so walk me through, you've got the agent and what happens next?
Well, then I did more revising because the book was still not ready. So there was just so much revising that happened with this book. So we revised it, and then she started sending it out to editors. And I mean, I really had no idea. Like this was like my first go round. She was like, "I'm going to send it out to like editors at like XYZ places," and I was like, "Cool." And you know, some people didn't want it, which is always hard, but there were a few people that did want it. So we were able to sell it to we sold it to Gallery, which is a Simon and Schuster imprint, and the editor there was fantastic. Really had a good experience with her. I sold the book in I think like April of 2016, and it came out in August of 2017. So as you might imagine, there was more revision that took place after I got the editor.
Yeah.
So,
Yep. Well, so yeah, so I mean it sounds like a pretty good experience overall. And then this is the one that got the TV deal, right? So how
yeah.
did that happen?
So I think maybe in maybe like the late summer or early fall of 2016, after I had sold the book, but before it was published, my agent Lisa was like, I have these film agent friends who are interested in passing the book around. Is that something that interests you? And I was like, yeah,
Of
yes, of
course.
course it is. Let's do
Yeah.
it. And they were able to get some interest. I think I took maybe like three different creative calls over that, which is, you know, like producers trying to tell me what they would do with the book and me trying my best to appear to be somebody that would be nice to work with.
Uh-huh.
And one of the calls was with Reese Witherspoon and her Hello Sunshine company. But yeah, I mean, I think that
Was
was
it
like,
actually with Reese
it was
Witherspoon?
actually with Reese Witherspoon.
Whoa.
Yeah,
Oh
I
my gosh.
know. Yeah, I think it was like the coolest thing that had happened to me in my life up until that point. It was a conference call though, because it was, you know, 2016, so nobody was on Zoom. So it was this huge conference call with all these voices that I did not recognize.
Yeah.
Reese Witherspoon you can pick out, but it's, you know, I don't know. I get awkward on a conference call. I'm like, who's speaking? Is it my
Yeah.
turn?
That's
Um,
confusing. Yeah, and now we're so used to Zoom where you can at least see
yeah.
the person who's talking. Yeah.
Yeah, and you can see if they're like engaged. Otherwise, you're just like talking and you're like, is this person even listening to me? You
Yeah.
know? But it was really neat. And we ended up going with Hello Sunshine, not only because we felt like they had the best shot of getting it actually made, but because their vision seemed to align the most with kind of like how I saw the book. And if you've seen the show, you know that they made some significant differences. So, like I said, my protagonist, Josie, is her father was murdered 13 years ago before the start of the book. And kind of like the antagonist of the book is this podcast host who is reinvestigating her father's death and dredging up all this old drama in the process. But the television show made the podcast host the star of the show. So she's like the protagonist. She's the central character. And so it's definitely different. They changed a lot. They changed the ending. But even though they changed all those things, it was still very true to like the story
Mhm.
that I had been trying to tell, that we kind of gotten to a point where true crime media was kind of letting the public turn tragedy into entertainment and like commodifying people's deaths. And so I felt like they really got that. And they really, even though the exact plot wasn't what I had written, it was still very much what I wanted to say, which I thought was really neat.
Yeah. When that all happened, was it like you're just like, okay, take my book and do what you will with it? So you didn't really have any
Yeah.
say once.
I didn't. I didn't. I remember very clearly they sent me the pilot script and it wasn't like for my approval or anything. It was just like, hey, thought you might like to see this. And I read it and I like immediately called my agent and I was like, we have made a terrible, terrible mistake. And she was like, why? I think it's really good. And I was like, no, it is very good. And that is the problem because people are gonna watch the show and they're gonna think the show is so good, and then they're gonna read the book and they're gonna be like, and then they're gonna go on Goodreads and they're gonna be like, 0 stars, this book is not as good as the show. She was like, that's not gonna happen. Like, calm down.
Well, I feel like, and what you've just said is that, like, people who watch the show now they need to go read the book and see, like, oh, you'll get a whole, like, different perspective on the story.
Yes, it is. It's a different perspective. It's Josie's instead of Poppy's.
So first of all, I somewhat recently had a call with a film agent that was a call, like not as many people, but it was like my agent, her assistant, and the film agent, and my agent was like, yeah, for some reason in Hollywood they seem to do calls more than Zooms. I don't know why. Maybe because sometimes people are like calling from their cars on the while they're driving. I don't know. But one of the things she was saying was like, oh, we'll try to get you a producer credit. And then I was asking, no, nothing has happened from this, by the way. But I was asking my agent later, like, does that mean I get like a say? And she was like, not really. She was like, it's kind of just like a nice thing, but they're going to pretty much do what they want with it. So, but I guess like sometimes the authors do get to be a screenwriter or get to be like a producer. I don't know.
Yeah, yeah. I'm also not entirely sure how that happens. I I had so little experience in that world that I just really wanted to make sure that the professionals were handling it.
Yeah.
It's so interesting to me. Like television and film are such a different
Yeah.
medium than
Yeah, I feel like if someone was like, "Oh, do you want to write the screenplay for this?" I would not trust myself. I would be like, "Let me go study
yeah,
screenwriting for two
right.
years and then I'll get back to you."
Yeah, I went out to lunch with a friend and she told me that she'd like sold an original script to Netflix. And I was like, oh my God, that's so amazing. And then I came home and I told my husband and I was like, oh my God. I was like, Laura sold this script to Netflix. And of course I'm happy for her, but I'm also really, really jealous. And he was like, well, babe, like Laura sold a screenplay because she wrote a screenplay. Have you written a screenplay? And I was like, well, no. That's why I like sat down. I was like, maybe I could. No, I can't. It's a completely
Yeah.
different skill set.
Although I have talked to a couple of novelists who said they like decided to study screenwriting and then they feel like it really enhanced their novel writing because they started kind of like seeing things more cinematically and like translating that into anyway. So I'm like one day when I
Interesting.
have time, I'll
Interesting.
I'll study
I know,
screenwriting and
right?
like yeah.
You and me both.
Okay, well okay, that's really interesting. Like your first book out of the gate, you're talking to Reese Witherspoon, it's getting made into a TV
I
show.
know.
Incredible. So then I guess what I want to know is like how did the sophomore book go?
Not well. Yeah, I mean, starting where I did was kind of like a really high bar. My next book was called Follow Me. It came out in February 2020. It came out like February 25th, 2020, which
Oh,
was like yeah, it was like a terrible, terrible time.
can I pause for a second? Was this like to
Yeah.
the same editor, same publisher?
Yeah, yeah. So Follow Me was also with Gallery, which had my first book. I had started out with the same editor, but a couple of months before the book came out, she left editing. So that was kind of hard. Because they gave me a new editor and she was lovely, but like she wasn't the one who brought me in. And she didn't have that same sort of investment in my book that my
Yeah.
previous editor had. Yeah. And so publishing is hard. Everybody's always competing for like a very finite pile of resources. And you kind of need your editor on your side to be like, yes, like this book deserves XYZ things. And since I didn't have that cheerleader anymore, it was, I already kind of felt like I was fighting an uphill battle right there. And then it was like February 2020 and the pandemic was happening and nobody was buying books and nobody in particular wanted to read some sort of story about like a social media star and her stalker. That just like wasn't the sort of thing anybody was interested in. So the book did not do very well.
Well, and I would imagine you probably had like bookstore events that got canceled and
Yeah, I'd done a couple of bookstore events, but it was like starting to get weird. Like people would be like hand somebody their phone to like take a photo and then be like, wait, no, I don't think I should do that.
yeah.
And then I did end up having to like cancel something. I was supposed to go like to Chicago and I ended up canceling. And then other things ended up getting canceled too. And there at that time there were a lot of like really great people like Ashley Spivey, for instance, was like an influencer who was like really trying to help authors who had books published at that time period by like giving them her platform. So I was able to do some things like that, but once that momentum is lost, it's really, really hard
Yeah.
to get it back. And I'm still sad about that book because I loved that book.
So the great thing is it's still out there. People can go get Follow Me, and maybe now is the time that people
It's
will want
true.
to read it.
Maybe. I like the way that you think.
And then I know that like then you were probably, at least for a certain amount of time, probably home with your kids, like I was.
Yeah.
And so did you just kind of feel like your writing career kind of came to a halt for a while?
Yeah, it really did. I was looking back on it, it was a very, very bad time. Because not only had Follow Me, this book that I had been working on, not do particularly well, I'd had another book out on submission when the pandemic started that my agent and I ended up pulling back just because nobody was reading. Like they would call her and they'd be like, I can't read this. Like my kids are home. Like I don't know when I'm going to get to it. So we ended up pulling it, which felt like a failure. I had a baby, my second child in 2020. So, and my son couldn't go to his nanny anymore. So he was like suddenly home and my husband was working from home and it was just crazy and chaotic. And I was feeling like I was like, oh my God, I'm never going to write another book. How is this ever going to work? I think I don't even want to know how many like panicky emails I sent to my agent during that period of time because I was like desperate. I was like, I have to come up with another idea and it has to be a good idea. And, she was basically just like, like pump the brakes here, girl.
Yeah.
Nobody's doing anything. Like it's not just like you, but I felt like it was. And I did end up writing another book that ended up dying on submission, which was also very heartbreaking because
Yeah, of
I
course.
spent a lot of time on it and I loved it. It just did not find an editor that was ready to fall in love with it the same way that I had. And I think it probably didn't help that the Follow Me sales were not very good.
Mm, hmm.
So that was kind of hard. And there was like definitely a period of time where I was like, well, I'm clearly never going to write another book, at least another book that would like go out onto the shelves. Like, I don't think I am physically capable of not writing a book, but I was just like, I am never gonna like
Yeah.
sell another book again.
Your first two books, what were the genres of those, would you say?
They were being sold as suspense.
Okay.
I kind of believe, yeah. So when I wrote Truth Be Told, I believed it was a women's fiction novel. And my editor was like, no, what you have written here is a suspense novel. So part of the editing process was taking it more into suspense. And then part of Follow Me was like leaning more onto the suspense because that seemed to be the part that
Mm,
people were,
hmm.
were resonating with.
Well, and that's interesting too, where like so much can come out during revision, during getting an agent, during getting an editor, where like they're like, let's lean into this genre and make it more, suspense, more. So they were just calling it suspense, but not thriller.
Right. Well, so when the paperback came out, you know
Mhm.
how it says like a novel on the front cover? When they were drafting the paperback, they tried to put a thriller on the front cover of Truth Be Told. And I was like, oh my God, please don't do that. Because I had seen the people on Goodreads who were being like, this is not a thriller. I wanted a thrilling book, and this book sucks. So I was like, please
Yeah.
don't like market it as something that it's not. So they listened to me and they gave me a novel. But yeah, no,
Yeah,
it's
that's so hard
suspense.
too, of like if it gets pigeonholed into a certain genre, then the people coming to that with certain expectations. And so it might be like a perfectly wonderful book, but if it doesn't hit
Yeah.
like their expectations, then it's
Yeah.
so hard. Yeah.
I know. I know. It's funny because when I started writing, I like had no idea about like genre or anything like that. And so I was just like, well, this is a book. This is a book about a woman who like something happens to her. And now I'm like, oh, well, no, I need to like know the genre, like not only so that I can deliver the conventions, but so that I know how to like market it so it can find the right readers.
Yeah. Well, okay, so then you wrote another book after having some disappointments. You wrote another book, but this one was romantic comedy. What made you decide to pivot?
It was my agent, actually. I because in addition to the book that died on submission, I think there was at least one, possibly two other complete books I had written and sent to my agent. And she was like, oh
Oh.
no. This this is not a book that we are going to be taking out into the world. But so at that point I was getting like a little frustrated and I think I was just like spamming her with many ideas all of the time. And she called me one day and she was like, "Have you ever thought about writing a romantic comedy?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Well, have you ever read an Emily Henry book?" And I was like, "No." And she was like, "Well, why don't you like read one and get back to me?" So I read People We Meet on Vacation and I called her and I was like, so I read it and like, no, like I can't write that. Like I really enjoyed it, but like she's really funny and I'm not able to do that. And she was like, okay, well, like it was just an idea. I just thought that like your voice might translate well to that kind of work. But then I went on a writing retreat with some of my girlfriends who write in romantic comedy slash women's fiction. And they were all working on these stories and like having a great time and like laughing and like helping each other with jokes and like the romantic aspects of their story. And I was trying to write this thriller that was just like not
You're
going
like, does
anywhere.
anybody want to help me plan a murder?
Yeah. Yeah. And I was like, they look like they're having so much fun. So I came back and I was like, well, like maybe Lisa was right. Maybe I should just like give it a try. I'm just going to give it a try. I'm not going to tell anybody. And like if it sucks, nobody has to see it. But I sat down and like the book just like fell out of me. Like it had been a really long time since I had written something that just came to me so quickly and with so much ease. That was the book that became Both Things Are True, which came out in September.
Yeah, that's so great. That's great to just be like, I'm just going to try this. It doesn't have to go anywhere. I don't have to show it to anybody if I don't want to. And then you kind of free yourself up to just like let it all come out.
Yeah. I think that's exactly what it was, that like I had kind of like freed myself from the expectations because previously I've been like trying to come up with these ideas or like, okay, well, this is like twisty and this is like what the people want. And this, I was just like, okay, well, I want to write a book that like I would want to read.
Yeah, well, and I'm sure too to have that early success, and then you're trying to think like, how can I replicate that? What did people like about that book? Let me try to do it again, and you get like all in your
Right.
head.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. So you wrote Both Things Are True. You sent it to your agent. I'm guessing she liked it. She was like, okay, yes, this one is
Yeah.
good.
She did. Yes. Yes, she liked it. Yes. And we were able to sell it, which is
Yeah.
also very
And
good.
do you think that you will write more romantic comedy? Like, do you think you're going to go back and forth between the two genres?
I would really like to. I did write another romantic comedy that I sent to my agent about 5 days ago, and as of this moment, I have not yet heard back from her telling me that it's brilliant and perfect, which obviously means that she hates it. So, no, I will continue to wait and get her feedback. But I also really like this one, so my fingers are crossed that.
Yeah, fingers crossed for you too. Okay, and so it sounds like also you're doing a lot of writing in these years. I'm guessing you did not go back to being a lawyer and you were just like, I'm going to focus on my writing career.
Yeah, yeah. That's what I've been doing. I have two small kids and I guess they're getting less small every day, but for a while it really felt like somebody needed to be at home
Yeah.
ready to like get them or like shuttle them to like various places. So it made most sense for me to be able to do this. I mean, I'm also a book coach, but so that kind of like brings in a little bit of additional money. But one of the things about writing full time is that it is terrifying because I'm like, it's not particularly lucrative. And even when the money is coming in, it's not coming in on any sort of schedule. And you
Yeah,
really can't plan
yeah.
on it. So I kind of like traded the stress of the big law, but with like solid expected money to the stress of not really knowing when I'm going to have money again,
Oh, it's
which
hard.
is,
Well, tell me about, I did want to ask you about being a book coach. And that's like a program that you did to get certified as a book coach. I don't know. Tell me about your process for that of what you do for clients.
yeah. So I'm certified through Author Accelerator, which is Jennie Nash's company. And so she's the author of Blueprint for a Book. So because I'm certified, I'm able to teach her Blueprint for a Book method, which is kind of like a way that helps writers kind of dig down to not just like what the book is about, but like why the book is about that, which I think is a nice way to really help you develop it and to really help you communicate what you're trying to communicate. It was, and like the reason that I do that is because I heard Jennie Nash speak somewhere and it was just like a light bulb went off in my head. I was like, oh my God, this is what I've been missing. This is why my books haven't been coming together. So I do that. I work through the blueprint with clients, but I also do other kinds of work. I do like manuscript consultations. If somebody has like a full manuscript, I'll read that and give them like kind of like a developmental edit. And I do just kind of like one-on-one book coaching where somebody's kind of writing something. They're like writing the novel and I'm working alongside with
Yeah,
them.
that's a nice way to like break up the day, get some like socializing in, you know.
It is. And it kind of like fills my creative well in a way that like I find it really rewarding to help other people like realize their vision, to like help them like talk through the problems that they might be having and see them have these like breakthroughs. I find that like really creative, fulfilling also, and kind of like energizes me to like come back to my work.
Yeah, totally. Oh, that's great. Well, okay, so then tell me about, we talked a little bit about Sisterhood Above All that your agent had actually said, like, hey, I think now's the time to write a sorority book, and put you in touch
Yeah.
with the Rush Talk,
Mhm.
yeah, world.
Amaya.
And
Mhm.
then what was that process like? Were you kind of like writing and then sending stuff to her? Were you guys brainstorming together?
Yeah. So we started by doing a couple different brainstorms. Like Amaya and I would get together and we would brainstorm about, I mean, the brainstorms kind of started very broad, where we would talk about like just like vibes at first, like what kind of vibe we wanted. And we kind of like shared some of the things that were important to each of us. I think Amaya and I came into it like wanting the same thing. Like we both wanted to be able to tell like this like fun, kind of like twisty thriller story. But it was important to both of us that the characters felt real and that, the sorority experience felt authentic and not like a cliche. And like we didn't want to be
Hmm.
making fun of the sorority experience because it was something that was important to both of us. And then we talked about different characters. And, something that's really important to Amaya was to see a character of color like represented in the book also. And so we developed these characters together. And then I like wrote an outline and I sent it to her and got some like feedback. And then I would write pages and I would send them to her. And then we would kind of like talk about like what to do from there and how, the characters might be reacting to these different things. So it was a really neat process. I was really nervous going into it just because, like
Yeah.
writing is solitary. Like I'm used to just like sitting here by myself. Like I sit here and I write a full draft and then I send it to my agent and like nobody else ever sees it. And suddenly I was writing like, 50 pages and sending it to somebody else to like get her feedback before I wrote forward, which was strange. But it was a really great process. Amaya is a delight to work with. And so
Oh, that's cool. Are you guys gonna do any events together? I don't know where she's based now,
mhm.
but
Yeah, so she had been down in Alabama. She actually just graduated within the last couple of weeks. I don't know where she will ultimately be based, but she is originally from Naperville, Illinois, which is, and I'm originally from Illinois. So we are doing our first like book launch event at Anderson's Bookshop in Naperville together. And then 2 days later, we'll be down here at DC at East City Bookshop to do that. And then we're going to try and do one down in Tuscaloosa later on in the summer, which is where
Oh,
Alabama
cool.
is.
Yeah. Well, yeah, when I looked her up, I can't remember now, but she has gobs of
Oh my gosh,
followers
so
on
many. Yeah.
so many. So I'm really excited for you because I'm hoping that all of her followers will buy the book
I'm hoping
and
so
this will be
too.
like a huge success for you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
please. That my fingers are crossed.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I guess my next question is like, are there any other bumps or detours or successes or anything else that we haven't covered?
I don't know anything like specifically. I mean, I guess I will just say that I am just like constantly surprised at how hard publishing is. It's like it's both very, very fun. Like I sometimes it's like a dream to me that I get to sit here at my computer and make up stories. But I also like wake up in the middle of the night being like, oh my God, nobody's gonna buy my book. Like, what am I doing with my life? So yeah, so there's that. I would describe that as a bump, the bump to my mental
Yeah.
health.
Yeah, well, and actually that was gonna be my next question is like what has surprised you? But I guess that's the surprise. It's just how hard it continues to be.
Yeah. I mean, like I'll give you like a good surprise is, the community that surrounds it. Like that was something that I was surprised about just because writing feels very solitary and I wasn't prepared to find like such a great community of other writers, like particularly like in the crime space and like particularly like here in this area. Like, like
Yeah.
everybody's really great, comes out to like support everybody else. So that's been like a pleasant surprise and has definitely like offset like the negative
Yeah.
surprises of how hard and unpredictable publishing is.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and I'll just say too, like I guess as a tip, and then I'll ask you for a tip. But somebody else had recommended to me, like, oh, Eva, you should join the Mystery Writers of America, since you're writing thrillers now. And I was like, okay, I think it's like $100 a year or something. But then that's, I think, how I found out about all the things that happen in our local area and like found out about Noir at the Bar where I saw you read. I think that's how I found out about Bouchercon where,
Yes.
we met in person. So it's like just finding out these little things and then you kind of get plugged into the whole community.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point. Yeah, I mean, I guess I would say to your listeners, if definitely like seek out the writing communities, like those kind of organizations, like, mystery writers, if you're writing this genre, or, like I know there are like women's fiction writing chapters and romance writing chapters and all of that. So I think that's definitely important. Yeah.
Yeah, because I think sometimes you look at like the main website and you're like, oh, well, this is like a big national organization. Like, is this going to be helpful? But then it's got all of the regional
Yes.
chapters, and that's how you meet people that are actually in your area. And it is
Yes.
nice to like meet people in person and get out of the house. I'm personally making a goal to just get out of the house more. So,
That is a good
so
goal.
yeah. Yeah. Well, okay. So we already talked about one tip, but do you have any other tips for the road for our listeners? And it can be about writing or the creative life or publishing or anything else.
Yeah. I guess I would say to kind of like keep your eyes on your own paper. Like it can be like really easy to look at other authors' careers and like feel a certain way, like be like, oh, we're like they're getting like this, or like they did this, or like that idea is like so much better than mine. And I just think it's really important to put your energy into controlling what you can control. And that's like your own writing and making it like the best that you can be and like putting your vision into it and just not worrying about what everybody else is doing.
Yes, 100%. Not worrying about those people with selling their Netflix
Mm-mm.
screenplays.
Do not worry.
No
Celebrate
worrying
them,
about.
but do not compare. So,
Yeah, yeah. Well, thank you so much for talking to us, and I hope you have a wonderful book launch and that everybody finds all of your books and reads them all.
thank you so much. Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed chatting with you.
Thanks again to Kathleen Barber for coming on the show. Now, if you want to see the cover of the Babysitters Club fan fiction I wrote when I was in second grade, I will link to it in the show notes, or you can just head on over to my Instagram or Substack where I've posted the picture. Also, I didn't mention it while we were recording, but Kathleen was talking to me from her home, and behind her were stacks of books so tall, I was seriously a little worried they were going to topple over and crush her. To see what I'm talking about, check out her Instagram page, also linked in the show notes. She takes most of her photos and videos in front of these dangerously tall stacks of books, so be careful, Kathleen. And also, thank you for coming on the show. Thanks for listening to The Long Road to Publishing. Many of the books we discuss on the podcast can be found at my bookshop shop, the link for which is in the show notes. My guests' books and many of the resources we discuss on the show can also be found in the show notes. You can find me online on Instagram, Blue Sky, and Substack with the handle Eva Langston. Even better, subscribe to my free newsletter for writers at evalangston.substack.com. Information about how to pitch the show or send me an email can be found on my Substack page. If you'd like to support the podcast monetarily, consider becoming a paid subscriber to Eva's newsletter for writers on Substack. For $5 a month, or less if you make an annual commitment, you will receive, in addition to my free newsletters, special posts for paid subscribers, as well as access to my entire catalog of writing courses, craft workshops, and previous paid subscriber posts. The Long Road to Publishing is produced and edited by me, Eva Langston, and the intro-outro music comes from the artist's sound roll on Upbeat. Be sure to rate, review, and subscribe to the show, and I'll be back soon with more publishing stories and more tips for the road.